warm welcome to all the panelists. Thank you for being here and making time. The anchor point for our discussion would be the frontline. So we'll focus more on the frontliners and the incentive schemes for the frontliners as we go through the panel. But we'll not just restrict the discussion to frontliners. I would request the panelists to also talk about plans that exist for middle and senior management employees. Incentives clearly have gained a lot of prevalence and also a pie in the total rewards equation. Over the last 15 years, the prevalence for incentives has actually jumped up to 95%, meaning 95% of the organizations today, not just retail, outside of retail as well, have some sort of incentive plan in place. Furthermore, 65% of the organizations here also have a long-term incentive plan in place. Alongside prevalence, we've also seen the pie of variable pay shift upwards. The senior management short-term incentives has jumped up from 16% to 24%. Likewise, middle management has jumped up from 12% to 15%. And junior management also making a shift from 8 to 10%, moving up to about 12%. Though the success and the degree to which these plans are really effective would differ from organization to organization, but broadly one could intuitively imagine that they help in driving the organization's objectives. That in context, I will open up the panel discussion here and would like to firstly ask the panel members here in terms of what is the real objective behind providing incentives to employees. Is it really about driving the desired behaviors? Is it about managing the expenses better, as you could lower your fixed pay and up your variable pay and so on and so forth? Or is it only a competitive necessity, meaning that other organizations provide incentives, so we need to follow suit and hence also provide incentives? Really would like the panel members to open up and start sharing their thoughts here.
With regard to the incentive plans and specifically to the front line when we talk, normally every organization has their business goals, their targets to achieve. And along with that, we align the sales incentive program because we're talking about productivity and performance. So keeping in view this, as an organization, the focus should be on the sales incentive, on the enablers, which is a behavioral aspect, and also looking at the key sales processes. Because what you want your employee on the front line to look into is to encompass all the three factors while performing a sales job and giving a customer delight.
Sure. Okay.
Hi. As my colleague Shalini said, that the main key aspect would be sales and measurable aspects of how do we measure the incentives. I want to twist a little bit that when we talk about incentives, it is not a one formula which will really go and fit all kind of needs of the people. And it depends on the maturity curve of the organization, whether it's a startup organization or it's growing, already saturated, or are going to be a diversified. So for every different organization stage, the incentives could be different. And the most important part is when we are driving this incentive scheme, apart from the sales, if we are saying that the organization particularly has a need to drive customer centricity or to drive the performance, team performance. So it cannot be only the sales. So we have to look at the parameters, measurable parameters, where incentives are measured and given on those skill sets also, which are been absolutely a softer aspects of the associates, which needs to be shown, demonstrated at the shop floor. Another very important point is when we are really communicating, our communication strategy has to be very, very flawless. Until unless we tell our agenda of the organization that what is the main objective of driving this incentive scheme, it could be misunderstood. So these two aspects are very important. What stage we are as an organization, and secondly, how we are communicating.
So, Neil, you wear a business as well as a HR hat at Nykaa. We would love to hear your point of view in incentives.
Yeah, I think it's obviously wearing multiple hats, plus being a new entrant into physical retail, we've obviously looked at the various landscape and figured out what we want to do and set up our HR policies as. And the most important thing we realized was you obviously have to hit all the basics to make sure you can get good people at the company. But more importantly, we want to make sure that the culture the organization has and our history doesn't get diluted in any way. So we set up a very strong incentive program focusing on culture around aspects that you've got to earn, contribute to the company, and you will get benefited from that perspective. So our variable component from that perspective, when we looked at it, is much higher than most other organizations because that's core part of what our company stands for. And irrespective of whatever division within the company, irrespective of the role, that core does not get diluted. And on top of that, what we've done is we've had, because the variable is a higher component, we've had employees and mid-management and senior management themselves contribute to what the KPIs and goals of an organization or a vertical should be, and based on that, set the variable component. So everybody has the ownership and commitment to getting to that endpoint for the incentive overall structure that they have, and not focus only on base pay.
Thank you. There is another parallel conversation going on at the back. Can I request team and management team to kind of look into it? There is a discussion at the back. Okay, great. Moving on. Having understood real objectives to an extent of having incentives, etc., in place, one of the key objectives, as you understood, is centered around performance, right? So incentives do drive performance is the hypothesis that we've come out with. But really, have you done any fact finding around it? Is it empirically proven that incentives indeed drive performance? Is there a correlation between the two? Has any organization tried to test the same?
So let me answer your first question, the objective. And what I feel, though it is kind of a norm in any of the retail organization having incentives, what I feel is the idea about incentive is putting employees' skin in the game, and you have a target to achieve, and how an employee can walk an extra mile so that you achieve your targets and go beyond. So this is my understanding about why the incentives are in place. And there is a correlation, and if you see the incentives are quite aggressive. I have seen the performances are also good, and it is all depend how you design your incentives so that people are thrive to achieve extra mile and can deliver more and they can earn more. So it is also solving a problem of creating an extra earning potential for your employees, especially the front line and the entry level guys, where the component of salary is very, very low and they can earn more actually.
Sure. Any other point of views there?
Adding to my colleague Sandeep's viewpoint, I think performance is something which needs to be driven beyond the 100% of the target achievement, where we only try to put the measurable that we have to achieve 100% target. What do we do if employees want to do little more to earn more? So can we really put some schemes of incentives which can create those opportunities for associates where they feel that every extra effort beyond 100% achievement of target can yield some results and fill their pockets? And generally all the store people are millennials, so for them every 10 rupee, every 15 rupee matters. So in my previous organization, actually we did a study or a pilot in one of the zones where we said that this is the 100% which is based on your performance collectively, team as well as individual, which will be bifurcated or given to you equally. But beyond that, anybody does little extra per piece in apparel, that you would be given 15 rupees for an extra piece. So they were even going on a 31st night, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock to sell and increase the basket size. And we saw the results. It actually increased result by 33% in that 2 months. And that pilot was successful, and then we rolled out that scheme across India.
So just to add one component, when I'm thinking of this and sitting with employees and having this discussion, the bigger focus is obviously you've done great this year, so thank you. It's a small thank you from the company to you for doing a great job. But more importantly, anchor them around the year to come and say that this is obviously an opportunity to grow more. So the way we look at it is obviously a very strong retention correlation as well because of the incentive anchor. and obviously say now the next 6 months, next 9 months is obviously a huge push forward. So we've seen our retention is much higher with that culture across the organization compared to most others because of the differentiation in the anchor we gave on the incentive program.
Sure. So ideally speaking, right, there are a couple of things that incentives should do. Incentives should push underperformers to do better. Incentives should make average performers feel good. And likewise, incentives should make the outstanding performers feel special. And with that, I'm coming back to you, Sandeep, with the comment that you made. Typically, we see the multiplier on account of performance in retail, outside of retail as well. The swing typically tends to be in between a x going up to a 1.5x or 1.75x at the maximum, meaning the ratio of incentives earned by an average performer to outstanding. My question is, if the real desire to have incentives in place is to drive performance, being the anchor point, apart from a couple of other things, that's it. Is a differentiation to the extent of 1.5, 1.75 times enough? Or should it be far sharper? Why not a 2x, why not a 3x?
I think fair point. Now we all are thinking and working towards creating a differentiated workforce, and incentives and the rewards going to be sharper and sharper. But I think in retail the budgetary constraints and all is not very feasible. And we have been trying in this company and the earlier company also. But I think the budget doesn't allow that because you have to handle the large workforce and you have to distribute the money. But I think going forward, this is going to happen that you are having a sharper rewards to the better performance.
Okay.
I just add?
Yeah, please add.
So instead of looking at a X percentage increase in the incentive, what I would recommend is to create buckets of incentive plans, which means that there is an individual who gets a sales incentive, who's recognized for his performance. Then there is a group incentive wherein a group gets an incentive, and thirdly is something wherein as a team wherein they perform certain enablers apart from sales function, that they follow the processes, and that's something falling into a mystery audit kitty. So maybe these kitties can be created which motivates or encourages an employee to perform to that extent in a way that they're able to achieve their own aspiration, as well as for the organization it's a win-win situation.
Sure.
Yeah, I would like to add, I think these are very fair points. As Shalini said, that it has to be differentiated. My only word of caution, whosoever, it's the responsibility lies on us who are driving the incentive schemes. It's very, very important that how we put the tools to measure it correctively. If we do not put those tools which will be measuring it very transparently, it might go for a different direction which we will not be able to sustain for a better performance. So the measurable tools have to be very transparent, very objective, so everybody knows that what they are gunning for. Second point which Shalini said, the different incentive schemes for different people. As Navneet said in his report, one thing may not fit all. I agree. A woman might need a one day off for her family, so that could be a bigger incentive than money, apart from which is the money which will come once 3 months or once in a month, or some innovative idea which you give, because it's not only the sale which we drive all the time. Innovative idea which relate to business productivity are very, very important, because those ideas are coming from customer side, directly being picked up from that shop floor people, and if they are not percolated up, the business will not know the pulse of the real customer, what's happening. If we can create those schemes to really incentivize those innovative ideas, I can quote an example. I think Sandeep is also witness, because we in our previous company we did that, where we were having a helpline which I was managing, and he being the business partner, business HR partner, we were doing that from the field, from stores. Any associate had an idea which was about the merchandise, which was about the customer feedback, or inventory, or supply chain, was to call the toll-free number, and all those ideas were collated and put up to the officers group on every Friday, and a thank you message for sharing that idea was also sent back to boost the morale. And then if the idea was successful and applied to the business improvement, then that person was called on our cultural meetings on the monthly basis, and they were having their breakfast meetings and all of that from the CEO and all the senior management. So that was a big kind of a boost, and they would look forward to pass on all the important information which a customer is passing. So that really helped the business to improve on various processes of business.
Sure. So this is the very interesting panel, right? So we've got a CDIT organization, we've got an online organization which is very into omni-channel now. We've got an organization that has a mix of FUFU and COCO model. Alongside that, a bit of manufacturing in it. We have an organization which is into specialty retail, which is jewelry, and then we have a value retailer in here. So my next question is really anchored around the fact, what do you measure and what do you reward? In the sense that, do you look for segregating the incentive plan based on store or the platform being the website at that level, or you segregate it by category, or do you more so reward individual performance?
So I come from a CDIT business. We have incentive programs category-wise because there is communication, digital, entertainment, and imaging. These are certain categories which are there in our store. For each category, there is a margin on each brand and each product. And the higher the margin is, we would like to make an incentive program on that category or that product accordingly. Having said that, the margin piece as well as the inventory for levels for that category and the brands and product, the incentive program is worked around on that. And these incentive programs are reviewed on monthly basis because the challenge from the market, brick and mortar and online, we have to watch it, see what's happening, what's not happening. We do a lot of research online to look at that, what is the consumer which is looking for, what is the need and how the need is changing. And what kind of products is something, is it wellness, is it health, is something an anything? How do we incentivize people on that so that that product or category is being sold more in the stores. So that is one aspect of it. Secondly, there is also a dilemma that there are certain stores which may be located in certain areas where you don't get much of footfall. An employee may feel that, I'm not earning incentive though I'm willing to sell a product because there is low footfall. In order to cater to that aspect, we do have a knowledge incentive, and it's first of a kind as Chroma has done, wherein we are in a business where knowledge is something important for us. We all know that a customer does a lot of research when they come to a store. They know more than a staff, or a 10-year-old knows that what a smartphone should have. And keeping in pace with that kind of a knowledge, it is important that our people are able to do a self-study also, apart from the trainings which we do. So we have a culture of lean time is learn time at our stores. When there are no peak hours, people are doing their own study. There is a desktop which is available, they go through it. Apart from that, we have a monthly and quarterly assessments for that, which gives them a flavor of the product or the category they are handling. So all these things, combination of knowledge incentive, your sales incentive, when they understand the whole view that how am I supposed to perform to achieve these targets, and these incentives are normally higher than their salary, it keeps them motivated, encouraged, and there is a sense of competition. They know that I can achieve this thing. So that's the environment we have created through incentive, which does not bring disparity in an employee of a store which is not doing well because of low footfalls or any other reasons.
So building on the point that Shalini just mentioned, and Sanjeev, looking at you, I guess there's a practice around different incentive plans coming into play in off-season vis-a-vis in-season. So can you talk to us a little bit about that? Sanjeev?
Sorry, I thought you were talking to Sandeep.
No, not Sanjeev, sorry.
Okay, yeah. See, when we talk about the incentives plan, I personally believe that the money is the motivating factor. And we all talking about the money, and it is very important that money is only one of the aspects which basically drives a person for performance. Now, coming on to the retail incentive aspects, every company has got its own incentives plans. We do also have some of our incentive plans, but apart from incentive plans, we have got one of the base system in which we keep all the customer associates on the roll of the company. So in this gives a platform a person to cut down the attrition rate. Simultaneously, when it comes on to the incentive plan, we give them incentive in terms of basically the sales, what we do have in terms of, we talk about giving them on the virtue of the sales on commission basis. We give on the store basis, in every stores we are giving them sales. Simultaneously also, we find that the people who are performing well, we cover all of them with the medical claim policy, and that medical claim policy is taken by us. So these are small kind of initiatives, but this helps us to basically ensure that the people are basically with us for a longer period.
And how does the off-season, in-season plan vary?
See, during the off-season, what we do is that the incentive rate is much higher as compared to the end-of-season sales. So that is the reason that whenever a person does a sales during the off-seasons, we give them more kind of incentives as compared to the end-of-season sales. Why? Because during end-of-season, altogether the customer comes and walks inside. Due to the discount being offered, that is how it is. Simultaneously, when we are talking on the terms of the incentives, we need that the incentives has to be designed and structured in such a manner that basically there should be a line of sight. If you don't have the line of sight, you will not be able to devise it. Suppose you go in a retail store and ask a person that you are responsible, salesperson, you are responsible for the basically the gross margin. I don't think so. He is a person responsible for gross margin. He is not deciding on discounts and markups. So I feel that basically there should be a line of sight for each kind of roles and incentive in which category of the employees you are giving it. Talking on the senior level of people like top executives, I personally feel that it should be net profit, it should be EBITDA, rather than basically focusing on what kind of sales volumes are doing it. So means every category of the employees, you should have a different line of sight. That is what I mean to say.
Sandeep, what are your thoughts on this particular piece, which is around segregated at a store level and looking at it for everyone in the store and so on and so forth, vis-a-vis category, vis-a-vis individual?
Yeah, so being a hyper store and value format, and there are different approaches I have seen in organizations. They have a category wise incentive, and I am a firm believer. I believe and I have practiced in earlier organization, in this organization also we are changing to is the performance of the store. This drives a better behavior, because within the store, within the box, one category guy is not interested to move to another category because incentives are low, or the probability of earning more is not there. So keeping that in mind, I am a big believer that we should have one incentive. However, we need to tweak some of the categories. Like E&E is a category where you need to have assertive selling and you have to put a lot of effort. So we have designed, recently I have designed a incentive scheme for dispensers, and we have taken care of that. So what we have done is, so there are two broad drivers, sales and EBITDA. In previous years in Walmart and in Bharti also, we have tried a lot of behaviors. So when initial years 2010, 11, 12, average bill value, then NOBs, then your customer surveys, a lot of things were there. Even shrink was one of the critical driver for the incentive. But over the period, the retailers have tried and tweaked their models, and they are somewhere little stable. Now everyone is looking for the profitability, and very important, any scheme should aim what you want to achieve for the organization. And considering that our two drivers are sales is very common for everyone, and the EBITDA. I believe all other behaviors you can drive with various ways and means, but I think the bottom line is your P&L bottom line and the top line of the sales. And what we have done for the E&E, electronics and electronics, we have said that the EBITDA would be of the company, but sales of your own category. So we just treat that way. We are coming up with a controlled brand. There also we will have a same approach. And second point is, while designing the incentive program, the simplicity is very, very important. I've seen I studied a lot of incentive program running by various organizations, and even my organization earlier programs were quite complex. It's very difficult, complex to understand by a common man. Common man means like your entry level guy, and he doesn't understand how it will be calculated. The transparency will not be there actually. So I believe that it should be very simple to understand, simple to calculate, and end of the day you achieve the target.
Sure. So here at Nykaa, I think it's looked at slightly differently, right? I think there is a different plan that works, or at least the earning opportunity or the pie at risk, etc., is slightly different for the front end or the core to the organization, which is the product, the technology, and so on, vis-a-vis the enabling functions more so. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Right. So in terms of execution, we obviously straddle various sectors and organizations from online to offline. So we need to make sure we have the right talent across each department. So depending on the department and their core function, obviously every employee is super important, but there is a difference in terms of the maximum earning opportunity, let's say for some of our product tech as well as marketing organizations, while the cap as to max earning potential for some of frontline is defined a little lower, depending on where the organization is. But irrespective of where you are, there is two things which do play out across all departments. Based on seniority, our variable compensation plan, basically sitting with equity, which is a long-term variation, is up to 15% of our employees in the company, which is much higher than most others. So all top management and mid management definitely have a long-term equity plan. And on top of that, a lot of the junior members of the organization have started getting that incentive as well, irrespective of which department you're in. That long-term value growth is something every employee contributes to, and which is where we want to try and get more and more going. In terms of, so yeah, that helps.
And Shalini, having being a CDIT organization, both online as well as offline, do the plans differ for the online format as well as the offline format?
So apart from the frontline, which they have an incentive program across the other departments in the organization, we have an e-commerce vertical. So they all have a variable performance-linked incentive, which is an annual payment basis, which comprise of company performance, as we all spoke about EBIT, and that is the plan which all people have in the organization. But for the frontline workforce, they are focused with this kind of a plan, which is a monthly payout of sales incentive and the behavioral incentive which we have. And just to touch on, I'm adding on to that, the incentive piece which should not be complex. We've discovered a new way to make people understand that what incentive, if I sell this, what am I eligible for. We run a quiz actually before we launch the incentive program every month, because we tweak it every month. And based on that, the understanding, they get glued to it and they answer. So that's one thing which should be simple. I can understand what I earn at the end of the day. Secondly, the incentive program is very realistic and achievable. For example, if you're looking at a 20% growth in a particular category, we put up an incentive point at that level, as well as at a 10%, which is the median, wherein I know that if I can't achieve 20%, if I achieve 10%, the incentive program is very realistic and achievable. For example, if you're looking at a 20% growth in a particular category, we put up an incentive point at that level, as well as at a 10%, which is the median, wherein I know that if I can't achieve 20%, if I achieve 10% also, there is something for me. So having said that, keeping these kind of milestones for an employee is very important, because the younger generation is looking at what is in for me today as of now. So we have to cater to those kind of needs, and have to be very agile in all those things. So we keep on reviewing this program yearly, monthly, or basis the market, intelligence which we get?
Sure. So Monica, being a high value specialty retail organization, how do you look at segregating or aggregating this? Is it different for people who are the core but the back end, which is the designers, vis-a-vis the people who are actually the front end and influence the sale, which is your sales employees in the store, vis-a-vis the rest of the organization? So is it really different for each of these segments, or is there consistency across?
I think, as you mentioned in your slide first, the one thing does not fit all. And being the high value retail organization, where even in the last 4 months the gold prices have gone 25% up. So if the incentives were only on the volume based, then I think my half of the workforce would have not been able to manage their incentives. So volume and value, both, again, that's for front end. Then what do we do to sustain the model that they really keep on earning their incentives month on month? Because we all are talking incentive schemes, but I think we have to address, which is the biggest challenge, that 4 months, 5 months when they miss out on their incentives. How do we motivate them? So are we really focusing on our incentive schemes which are helping them get that kind of a kick or a everyday boost in their performance that they are looking at? Yes, at our place at TBZ, I'm recently joined there. In fact, I'm very happy to see their incentive structure, and I'm going to add furthermore value volume for front end. Apart from that, to maintain the consistency, they have devised certain more parameters where in the lean months, which are not the heavy season months, they create those opportunities for them by giving them some schemes, which is a scheme which is say Kaya, which some SIP like SIP, where monthly investments are done by customers, so they get the incentive. So more customers they enroll for those schemes, so they get the incentives. Another one is the old gold. Old gold means the moment your customer comes into the store, if you are able to sell the new product and take the old gold, which any customer would be happy to do that, so they get the extra bonus points because they are getting that customer's loyalty there in the system. They are getting that person sticking to your organization for anything and everything for future. Another important point is that when we talk about incentives across, it's not only the front end. How do we tackle the workforce which is actually getting those pieces ready in the manufacturing side? And if they are absent from work, what do we do? So we have a attendance bonus, like you are there present all days which are your working days, so you get extra amount, which is say 1,000 rupee. For them 1,000 rupee is a big money. So they would make sure that they punch on time, they are there on floor, they are delivering that because, and then after 12 months, if you have been consistent in that, another bonus points incentive scheme. So they will ensure that the whole year they are there. Designers have different kind of incentives, which is that a special piece which they make masses or an art piece. So their conversion, their hit ratio, etc. would also get into that. So we have various kind of incentive schemes. Plus our marketing department plays a very big role. Because in the lean months, when there is no customer rush automatically, how do you pull them to your stores? So they come up with certain promotion schemes like BTL activities for different areas which are specific to that. Currently we are running a zero making month, which is very, very popular because we are not in the season, just 1 month behind the season. How do we encash these 2 lean months? So zero making scheme, which is attracting a big business and people are getting the incentive. So we have to ensure that we are a sustainable organization where we are creating those platforms and opportunities for associates to make their earnings consistent. So they are sticking to us. This is a retention tool.
Moving away a little bit from frontline incentives and the plans there and so on and so forth, how are organizations looking at long-term incentives? How are organizations looking at, I would imagine that long-term incentives are typically given for wealth creation opportunity and things like those. So just want to hear from the group in terms of how are you leveraging or not leveraging long-term incentive for the benefit of the larger workforce?
So other than the variable pay, which is part of the salary for everyone, We have a wealth creation plan for senior management and the top management, and that is around 30-35% of their TCTC every year that get accrued basis the company performance and the individual performance. And there is a 5-year plan, and then there is a one more like add on their 50 year. So if you this is kind of to retain people and the top management guys like putting their skin in the game. So this is kind of program we have.
Sure. And Sandeep, is it stock based? Is it cash based? How does it work?
It is cash.
It is cash based. And Nihir, how do we look at this piece at night? You did talk about the fact that incentive digs a bit deeper and also is provided to some of the people at the junior management. So what kind of plan do you have and what kind of earning opportunity really sits in there?
Right, it differs a little by level and the reason we give it. So when we hire senior management, most senior management is taking some level of a pay cut, especially in a fast-growing organization, because we can't always pay the highest cash component. So equity is a very important total overall package when you bring senior employees onto the organization, especially high talented ones. So for all of them, we give a significant equity package, which immediately is at least worth 20%, and over midterm could be as high as 50% of their total earning potential within the organization. For the certain mid-management, high potential employees, we again give a small component when they start. But a lot of the other people who we've given equity at this point has been after a year they've been in the organization. So they've done well. We believe that they are the ones who can contribute to the company's long-term success. So we've made them owners in the company and given them an equity plan which vests over 3 years so that they can contribute. And we are telling them very clearly, we believe in you. You are the ones who are going to take the company to the next level. And for them, it could be as small as a 5 to 15% component of what they seek today as part of the variable compensation plan. It just becomes a longer term variable compensation plan, which over time, already some employees are seeing as 30% of their earning potential within the year.
Shani, does your organization leverage long-term incentive plan?
So currently we do have a performance link incentive which is a yearly base. We are working on something called long-term incentive, which is in form of for people who are key to the business. Number one, people who are high potentials and people whom we feel that are the future for Chroma. So having said that, this is another layer of incentive which we are working on, wherein we would look at all these factors, and each department would have the flexibility as a head of the department to nominate their top 20% talent which they feel are the ones to be retained with the business based on their performance. This is something which we are working on. So we are exploring, since we are a non-listed company, we are looking into an option of phantom shares which we've heard of, or looking into a matrix of cash plus benefits in terms of knowledge, learning, growth, or in terms of benefits in terms of medical or insurance from the company. So these are 3 buckets which we are trying to work out so that it is able to help us, and people from executive to a top management level, this matrix suits with the business need as well as to their need to be retained with the business.
Thank you. I will take a pause here and open it up to the audience for any question. Yeah. Okay, we have a microphone there in the back. If I can request you to share your name and the organization name before you pose your question.
Hi, my name is Raghavendra and I come from Reliance Retail. I take care of the HR operations there. What I wanted to understand from the panelists is the way we have in compensation, an employee can choose from a cafeteria of benefits. Is it or has somebody practiced in terms of incentive for an employee to pick and choose from a basket of incentives which will suit him? Say for example, somebody wants to go on a vacation, or somebody wants extra 3 days of leave. I don't want money. So something of that has that been experimented, or somebody has got an idea of it? And I think it would be a wonderful intervention, because everybody's motivational needs are different and incentivization needs are different from individual. while they're driving incentives to drive maybe productivity or certain values of the organization. From an employee perspective, I think it will make more sense.
Before I let the panel respond, do look out for the Aon study on employee preference. Go ahead.
So I think it's very, very future forward looking question or a query which I think we all are looking at answer for, and today Navneet's report also said that what is going to be in future. So the basket which you are talking is going to be the need of the hour if we have to sustain the model, performance model for future organizations. I think it's wonderful, brilliant lead which you are giving all of us, which we should go back and sit on the board and write down all those that women would need maybe 2 days off and not incentive in the terms of money, and a millennial would want kind of a breakthrough from that flexi working, that he just comes for 4 days, and if he is available for evenings, if he has to go party with his friends, that can he choose his work hours. So those kind of things which are very, very important for all of us to think and put across to the business in a manner that the business does not suffer because we are not going to having the engaged workforce. To keep them engaged, this is going to be a solution, but today I don't think so. I have not had the courage to get into that basket in my previous organization. I think we are going to try this.
But I would have expected that TPC would let the employee choose between gold and cash.
I would just like to add to Monica, when we talk about the incentives in the employees, I say that why only at the time of end of season sales or when the sales are there? Why not throughout the year? I feel that incentives should be throughout the year. Why I mean to say that there should be a general excitement. There should be sweetening of pot when you feel that basically the incentives are rolled out. It should not be all standard incentives. Not why we talk about cash incentives. We can be non-monetary incentives also. You can give them gift vouchers. You can give them time offs. What he said, that you can send them for the vacation for the employees who are performing well. This needs to be done. But what we do in the incentive plan normally, I admit in front of all audiences, we do only an Excel administrative working while doing an incentive plan. Rather than what we should do, we should have a particular kind of a plan wherein the goal of the company, the basically planning of the company and the capability of the sales force should be also taken care while designing the incentive. This is what I need to say that.
I think I'm tempted to now further take on from Dr. Sanjeev. That reminds me, we all talk about cash incentives and stuff like that. I can clearly remember after even 12 years from now, before that, I bumped onto my CFO, the previous company CFO, who happened to be my co-colleague in Airtel in 2003, 4 and 5. And you know what he remembered? He remembered, Monica, you had created one incentive scheme which was just kind of a quick rewards for some idea, some breakthrough idea, some project. That was a spot the cheetah. You know what we had created? We had created one cheetah dummy, and we had created the spots, black spots, and in that we had written certain gifts, and the goodie bags were with CEO, with all heads, and anything they would like to appreciate for the person, they will just say, go and spot the cheetah. So even the marketing head, sales head, and the vice presidents of the company would also look for going and unspotting that cheetah and seeing maybe a cross pen or a dinner for his family, or a candlelight dinner, or a movie ticket. So those kind of incentives they remembered, he remembered after 12 years. He did not remember that he was getting a 15% variable or a 20% variable. And another important point he talked about, that Hall of Fame, that thank you cards. So those thank you cards were placed at various places. It doesn't matter that how much money you are earning. At the end of the day, we need to act human. That humanity would come when you sincerely go, walk up to a person and say, hey buddy, thank you. You made my day. You solved my problem. And whether you know that person or you do not know that person, maybe 1,000 miles away, if you can send a thank you, if you really want to appreciate, that builds the culture of performance, that builds the culture of team and collaboration. That's my take on softer aspect.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, can we have a microphone here?
My name is Amit. I'm from a company called Major Brands, and my question is: what is incentive today, tomorrow becomes an hygiene factor. And there's law of diminishing return that sets in. So today, with an incentive scheme that is rolled out, I might be able to achieve 1.5x, but tomorrow the same incentive plan would not give me 1.5x. So what do we do? Is there a solution to this dilemma? Thank you.
So, it depends on the aspirations, and I understand the younger generation aspirations keeps on changing. The needs, first it's a luxury, then it becomes a need, and then it's evolved. So, having said that, these incentive programs are aligned, should be aligned for any organization, not only aligning with business, but also to keep in mind that how do you engage your people or how do you retain them. One interesting study I would like to share is that these incentives, payout which happens in any form, whether it's cash or kind, in terms of reward and recognition program, this also gives a lot of insight to HR professionals from an analytics point of view, which means that who are your high performers, number one. Number two, people who are tried your organization due to salary concerns, saying better prospects. It is important to see that how that person has performed in earning those incentives, whether it is a sales incentive or a knowledge incentive or a team incentive. If that person is a zero in all those points, then was it the right person for us, or was it a healthy attrition for us that person left us? So it gives a lot of insight to us as a business, and it gives the talent acquisition team to identify the right key attributes of people who will be trained and retained in the business. You can tweak all those things from the whole employee life cycle, aspect. So that's the key role of an incentive program, which any organization should look at, or I will suggest or recommend all the HR professionals to do look at that aspect while defining this is the right set of attributes which an employee should have even at a hiring stage, or I can groom or train. So that's what I would like to share.
And what Shalini said is we need to be very clear as an organization or HR heads that what we want to drive through the incentive program. And I think if we are very clear, then I think we can devise and we can keep tweaking that. And these all aspirations will change. I think we all are professionals. We will also keep finding ways to satisfy. Of course, being ahead of the curve and doing some kind of futuristic design, that's a good idea. But I think every organization, every sector would be in a different stage, and they will be devising their incentive plan based on their needs. I personally believe that.
Yeah, I would really like to close the panel discussion with a question. A question can possibly put our panelists in a bit of spot. So my last question to the panel really is around the fact that if you were really asked to predict one future trend around incentives, what would that be?
So it's something that this is I want to choose from the basket of incentive, which aligns to my aspirations, is something which I see, because the millennials are not the people who want to work in a banding organization. Their expectations are different, and they feel that we work as a team. There is no superior subordinate, and what is there for me? So I think they're very direct and they are very clear in their life what they want. So maybe this is what I foresee. Yeah, sure.
Great ideas. My point is, I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of personalization today's day and age in this industry. You can actually track individuals' performance based on the level of touch point with a customer or a consumer. As an omni-channel player, our vision is the industry's omni-channel. Performance metrics will eventually be driven omni-channel wise. So the physical store person is the first touch point to a consumer and introduces our brand to a consumer. That same consumer will come online and buy. The credibility and credit of that lifetime value of that consumer goes to the store person who has actually touched the consumer. Or it could be an online person who eventually goes offline. We'll be tracking each consumer's behavior and each person in the company's contribution to that final pie and long-term value that the company generates. And that personalization is the direction we're already trying to work towards and setting up policies to support that.
According to me, what I feel is that why do we see incentives only as a part of a sales team or a front team? I feel that the incentive should be as a whole chain. Why don't we start incentive from this designing, sourcing, manufacturing? Even why let us go to the end? Why do the customer do not get the incentives? They should also get the incentives. This is my way of saying. Why? Because why it should be only restricted to a particular category of the people? So why I see the future where the incentives will be right from the designing in my kind of setup to the end consumers. That kind of incentives I look at the future.
Sure, thank you. Monica?
Yeah, I look at incentive because tomorrow's day is going to be belonging to the millennials. I think 90% of our workforce would be addressing. If today we see most of our kids are hooked on to the Facebook because they want to be present in their social groups. So whatever scheme, as Charlie mentioned, the basket from where we can choose and do the tailor making for different kind of groups. But at the same time, we have to ensure that apart from the financial incentives, can we do something which is the softer aspect, like a recognition? Because today's world, they would want ego boosting for themselves, because money is equal. That's not a differentiator, because they will get it here in the other organization and the third organization. What can differentiate is if we can create those groups, internal social recognition groups, where we can post their good behavior, their performance, which is little extra mile. I think that would talk about the overall shift in the cultural aspect and the mindset changing. How we can do it, that if somebody is really doing something good, can we just do a internal Facebook and appreciate that person? That person would feel elevated. Because that would kind of elevate his ego and would like to be there in that organization. That's my take.
Sure. Thank you, Monica. Sandeep?
So I would say the basics of incentive will not change in 2 or 3 years, what I feel personally. Of course, it will be a great opportunity for all of us as HR professionals to see what the aspirations of the workforce is and how we can align these all programs, specifically this incentive program, to address their needs. But the basic bottom line is going to be the same, and I think not going to change in 2-3 years, I think.
Sure. So just to summarize, a couple of quick points, right? So we've learned from Chroma in terms of how they're looking at segregating incentives by category. And we also really learned around the fact that they leverage something called a knowledge-based incentive plan, which typically doesn't exist in many organizations. We heard from Keval Kiran that there is a segregation in terms of the incentive plan, or a differentiated plan is there for the off-season vis-a-vis the season and so on and so forth. We learned from Nika about the fact that the pie of long-term incentives and total pay is quite high. That is serving as a means to attract talent, because the attraction from a compensation standpoint is not fixed but LTI. And as well as from a retention standpoint as well, aggressive LTI plan is what they are leveraging internally. We learned from Spencer's that the design aspect is quite critical. Alongside that, it is critical to keep the larger plan consistent. However, have a segregation for any segment that is really differentiated in that sense. And I think the example that Sandeep was talking about was the electronics category. We also heard from Sandeep in terms of the LTI plan, how deep it goes, and as well as the kind of earning opportunity that really sits as a part of it. Monica and TBC talked about the fact that the 90% of the workforce at frontline is actually millennials. Their expectations are very different, and hence the plans need to somewhere match the same. Just to close, a couple of points from my side here are really in terms of it's critical to really minimize the entitlement mentality. Incentives are variable in nature; they need to be executed accordingly. Second is having very strong and robust performance system around it, and a simple one. Third is really defining defining the result and reward equation very, very clearly. I think that's critical to a success of a incentive plan. And lastly, managing the communication around it so that people understand the plan and hence are able to look at the kind of objectives that it can help organizations achieve. With that, I close the panel discussion. Thank you for all of you. Thank you to all of you for working with me on this one, and I hope audience did get a very good perspective and a differentiated perspective around how incentives work and how incentives should work going forward. Thank you.